This is Intoxicated Literature.
Hello, and welcome to Intoxicated Literature. I am Evelyn Crow.
And I am Daniella Drake.
Okay, today we are talking about actually one of my favorite epic fantasy reads, and it is Queen and Conqueror by Isabelle Olmo.
And before we get into it, just want to talk about what we're drinking tonight.
Yes.
I'm having wine.
Wine. I'm
Wine.
also having wine. It is a dessert
Epic
wine.
fantasy wine.
Wine.
Can't go wrong.
No.
And
Perfect.
there will be spoilers.
Complete spoilers. We will spoil everything from start to finish because that's how we do it. So if you want to read the book first, stop now, go read the book, and come back later. That's the good thing about recordings. We will be here later. So
Exactly.
do that.
Yes.
All right. And there are some spicy times. It's not spice heavy, but we will be talking about some of that. And trigger warning for SA and some abuse. So just keep that in mind.
Also, there will be swearing. We swear like sailors, and because we are intoxicated literature, we can't really filter it out. So
No, we kind of just say whatever pops into our head. Sorry.
just happens, and I'm sorry, not sorry.
Okay.
So, let's get into it.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that this is one of my top reads, like, 2 years ago? When it was published, the year it was published, this was one of my top reads. Because this actually was epic fantasy as epic fantasy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When you think epic fantasy, I mean, this is, like,
For sure, yes.
epic fantasy.
Yes. This felt like Game of Thrones, but feminist.
Yeah!
Yeah.
I mean, even the quote on the back, like, I'm going to read it to you. Because there's a quote on the back from the book. And it's like, men will never be ready for women like us, and it is not our job to ready them.
That was one of my favorite moments in the book. For sure.
I mean, that is the essence of this book.
For sure. 100%. Yes.
It is a group of women going forth and doing politics in a male world and just doing it.
And doing it well.
100%. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I felt a little bit bad for Elmira. Like, I felt like she got a bit unlucky in love and then lucky in love, if that makes sense.
Yes, but it took a while.
Yes, because her first husband was kind of a dodo head.
He was kind of a dodo head, but we don't we don't meet him.
Right.
And I don't think she really met him.
I
Really?
know, that's the thing. Like, she professes to love him, but I don't think she really knew who he was.
He was gone a lot of the time fighting.
Yeah.
And I think that she was around him enough to have a vetting and have some intimate times with him.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know if it was even good intimate times with him.
It seems not. Like, a lot of her idea of intimate times was, you lay back, take what they give you, and you're happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
But-
like, you lie back, you think of the Queen of England, and enjoy it.
It pretty much. And
then,
like,
yeah.
I mean, her husband, Edgar, he was older, and also apparently in love with his twin. So, yeah.
But the good news is he dies right away.
He does. He does. You don't even get to meet him in the book. Like,
No.
he's dead.
Gone. Because they are at war. So here's the thing. This book is really is Game of Thrones because it's all politics.
Yes.
So if you don't like politics in a book, don't read this book.
No, this will not be something you enjoy.
I actually really enjoy politics because I like thinking about things and figuring things out. And, like, the complexity of this was really intriguing for me. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, here's what I liked about the beginning of this book, because her husband is dead. They come and tell her that her husband is dead. And she is like, well, fuck. My husband is dead. I have this small country I have to take care of. I am now the leader of this country. My dad, my father of another country, has raised me to be a leader of this country. What the fuck am I gonna do? Well, I'm gonna marry the guy we're at war with, and I'm gonna stop the fucking war.
Yep.
I'm gonna marry the guy who killed my husband. And I'm gonna stop the fucking war, because that is what needs to happen.
Yes.
But, like, the first 100 pages, I actually counted. It's like 77, 80. It's like somewhere around there. It's like the first 100 pages is her just planning how she's gonna meet this guy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know. It reminds me of, there was an actual historical figure, a woman, whose husband was killed in a battle, and she offered marriage to whoever it was that killed her husband. And they got married, and she brought all of her people, killed his entire retinue, like all of his army and whatever, and like took over. And this reminded me of that in a way, just because historically accurate, right? And I can't remember what her name was. I would have to Google it. But I know that it happened in history because I remember reading about it and being like, you get him. Like, you go, girl.
100%. 100%.
Because part of it is, and this book is very feminist, but part of it is as wrestling with the gender roles that we are assigned.
That's the thing, is her dad raised her to be a ruler.
Yes.
But her dad isn't prepared for her to be a ruler.
No, even he says at one point is, I raised you like a son, and now you speak like a king, is a direct quote.
Yes.
And even he's wrestling with the idea that a woman could be smart enough to know the intricacies of policy and politics and rule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he was really having a hard time with that. Because one of the last conversations she had with him, they were having a fight, actually.
They were having a fight, yeah. Because
fight.
he done fucked up.
Yep.
Yep.
And so it was hard for him to see her as because she was a force. She is a force.
She's only 23, 21, something like that. She's young. And she is standing up to these lords who have been in power for years, and she's saying, no, it's my time now. And they don't know what to do with that.
They don't. They have no idea. But she feels she's earned it. She's like, look, I have laid under the sky with no reward, pleasure or otherwise. I don't have a child, even.
Exactly.
Like, prove it. I have a country, okay, maybe small, but it's going to be taken over, but it's in the country.
Yep.
I have no reward to show for this marriage.
Exactly.
And what the fuck am I supposed to do with this?
Yep.
So you sit your asses down and you shut up.
Yeah. Let me figure this out. Exactly.
It's amazing, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
To see her just stand up and go, look, because it's what I think every medieval woman wanted to say in the face of everything they had to face.
I agree.
I mean, if you think of, like, Eleanor of Aquitaine.
100% that is exactly who I was thinking of, where she just rides up and is like, you know what? You're all fucking this up. Let me just do it, because then I know it's going to be done right.
Right? I mean, this is a woman of color writing this, and I know it's very white-centered to say that Eleanor of Aquitaine, but it was like, that's who I thought of.
No, same.
I was just like, this woman really just, like, sacrificed all of her pleasure. She sacrificed her virginity. She sacrificed everything to be married to this man in a political marriage, and then he died. For what?
I mean, she didn't even know there was pleasure to be had.
Mm-mm.
Like, that's like a whole scene later in the book, which is like Alton going, yes, there's more. Like, let me show you.
Surprise!
Exactly. And like the fact that she had no idea.
I know.
That was even possible. Yeah.
I know. So fuck her old husband.
Exactly.
I'm really glad he's dead.
Good riddance. Goodbye.
Absolutely. I will say that she is incredibly... I did identify with her a little bit, just because I am very much like her in that I am very methodical and I'm very much planning based.
For sure.
I will plan everything to the minutest detail.
Yeah.
And then it's all fucking fucked up because she went on that fucking horse in that fucking armor and got overheated and then had to ride in front of her betrothed and look like a weakling. And I died.
Yeah, I was laughing. That whole first meeting actually made me laugh quite a bit.
dying that whole time.
Because both of them were obviously playing parts.
Yes.
And you could tell that they were both playing parts, but neither of them could see it. And I'm just like, both of y'all are dumb.
God, it was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Cracked me
But I
up.
loved it because she so carefully crafted this image
Yes.
that she wanted to portray. And then, of course, it was just...
completely blown out of the water.
Yeah.
Ruined.
Because practicality, of course you're not going to be wearing a giant, like, costume and it's too hot and you're on a horse and you're not used to riding a horse for days. And, like, there are all these practical things that she just didn't think about and then got her into trouble.
Oh my god, it was hilarious.
I
Died.
know.
It was so funny.
I will say, though, her dress sounded phenomenal.
Oh god, it sounded beautiful.
Right? Like, and then they created this kind of, like, half armor, half formal gown look that I'm sure was really impressive.
I'm sure it was. But she almost
Yeah.
passed out.
Yeah.
But the snarkiness between the two of them, too. Like, they could not
Yes.
stand each other.
That was one of my favorite parts of this book, was the way that Alton especially would just, like, needle her.
Mhm.
Because she was so, like, in his mind, cold and calculated and collected. And he just wanted to see her look normal.
Yes.
Like a normal human being, without her defensive walls up, without her calculating happening. And so he was constantly just needling at her and trying to get her to, you know, give him a rise out of her that he just desperately wanted to see.
Yeah.
Which was hilarious because
I
he
know.
was good at it.
Oh god. He was so good at it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
He was so good at getting a rise
So
out of her.
good at it, yes.
Well, and he spent his whole existence was how to get out of being king.
Yes.
His whole existence, every day, was how can I procrastinate this meeting? How can I escape this and not do that?
Yeah.
And so to her mind, to a person who feels the responsibility is their duty, to them, so to her, she sees him as some flake.
Yes.
As someone who is just, ugh.
Kind of just a partier, and she's just like, you're not worth my time, right?
And so now we have, like, opposites attract kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But not even that. Now it's, like, literally just opposites, just bouncing off of each other. And I love the fact that they have dinner with each other every day.
His requirement. Oh my god, I've had
know.
the hiccups.
Okay, you drunkard.
I know. Hey, this is intoxicated literature. I am taking one for the team.
No, but they do. At his requirement, they have dinner every day.
Yeah.
And it's just the most awkward thing ever.
I thought it was so odd. It was actually really funny because when they were negotiating the treaty that would make their marriage formal, and him saying, "Okay, but you have to eat with me every night."
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking at the time, how odd that he would request that of her, because he also then would have to spend every night with her. Like, what a weird thing to want.
But then at the same time, though, I'm going, huh?
Mm-hmm. Why?
Why?
Exactly. And that's what I was also thinking is, okay, but why?
But we also have around her. So her, I keep saying her, but she does have a name. Almira. She has women. It's all women.
Her Red Guard were awesome.
Oh my god.
Loved it. Their introduction actually was so perfect because
Mhm.
they're trying to recruit more women to fight for their cause. Women only. Their leader is a total badass. Sanaa?
Yeah.
Is that how we're saying her name?
I
Okay.
think so, yes.
I think so too. She's a total badass. She's been saved by Elmira from a marriage she didn't want, and now she is all in on Elmira. She is like, we are cousins. I love you like family. I will protect you with my life. She's trying to get all these women, and her literal cousin joins her guard.
Yeah. She runs away from home.
Yeah, shaves her head, does the whole thing, and it's just like,
and had like a whole hazing thing where she has to like fight all of the guard. As a whole hazing ritual.
And I don't know if you thought this, but I remember thinking, girl, you are not ready for this.
No,
you are not prepared.
And I'm sure that's what the guard was thinking too.
Yes.
Because they're like fighting and they're just like, well, okay, we'll fight this girl, but are you sure about this?
She's not ready.
But she joins and she ends up learning a lot.
A lot. And I think that was something that even Elmira, like, she was pissed when she found out. But even she at the time was thinking, how can she be a leader if she doesn't understand how all this works?
Guess what book 2 is about?
Oh, is it about Hera?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good! I really liked Hera. I didn't necessarily like her point of view. I kind of wish that it just stuck with Elmira's point of view throughout the book. I didn't think that it added much to Switch. But, that said,
yes,
I still loved that she was rebelling and trying to be more than what she was raised as and trying to be better. So I'm super excited that the next book is for her. That's really, really good. That's awesome.
The Queen of the Stock.
I mean, I was already going to read the second book.
It was like you were in the politics of a palace, but with women.
Yes.
And it was really good.
Absolutely agree.
I really, really enjoyed that. And, like, the Red Guard was an especially good add to it. And I hate to keep comparing it to Game of Thrones, but that's, like, the only thing we have that people understand what it is.
Absolutely agree.
Because
I wish there was another thing
I
could compare it to.
I know.
Yeah.
Because that's just the most common, popular
right
fantasy that we have. But if you think about the White Cloaks in the Game of Thrones, that is what the Red Guard would be. Except they are not required to be celibate. She is not requiring them to do that. So when we first meet Sana, I think we were saying, she is in a brothel with a woman having a good time.
Having a good time. Yep. And I love that for her.
I know.
Like, and like so many of the guards at the castle in Swede is they're fully aware of who Sana is. And they're just like, she's just one of them, and they just kind of accept her the way she is, and I loved that. That made me so happy that it was just like, yep, we're all chasing, you know, a woman and looking for a good time.
It was perfect.
It was perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It was very perfect. What did you think of Alton's backstory?
I'll be honest, I felt, for me, it felt a little bit forced.
I also agree. I'm not going to say I didn't disagree. I felt like it was forced a little bit. I felt like there needed to be a reason that he killed his brother in the arena.
Yes, for sure.
That was the reason that was given.
Yes. I'm not sure that it landed the way that it was supposed to.
Agreed.
Yeah.
However, I do think it gave a good reason for his behavior with her.
Yes, absolutely agree. Yes.
Throughout the book.
It explained a lot of his behavior in a way that was believable.
Yes.
So that aspect worked for me. I just felt that there could have been another explanation and it would have worked just as well without the trauma.
Yes.
Like, what if he had just been plotting for an overthrow or what? Like, there could have been so many things.
He could have just been bullied.
Yeah, like there were other ways that it could have played out without having there to be sexual trauma. Like, I don't know. I
know. I tend to agree
not
with
everyone needs sexual trauma.
I also am grateful that the details were left out.
Yes, I am so grateful that we didn't have to read any details. Like, I was a little bit worried when he started to confess to her that we were going to get a detailed account, and for me, I was having a hard time.
I know, but she does include trigger warnings in the beginning of the book.
Yes, yeah, she does. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so I stuck with it. I didn't stop reading, and I'm glad that I did because she doesn't actually explain every little detail, which was great.
And he does say that it was an accident. It wasn't something that he was intending to do
Right.
in the arena.
Yes.
And I do believe that.
I believe that too. Yeah.
I do believe that. As a survivor of abuse, I do believe that.
He did not go in there planning to murder his brother. It was more just to show him you don't have control over me.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, as a survivor of abuse, I do believe that if I went into an arena and faced my abuser, I'd be like, I'm not planning on killing you today. And then I would find him dead at my feet later and be like, well, fuck.
Yeah. And the fact that he even says, like, I don't even remember it happening.
Again.
Like, really does speak to that abuse.
I can see that being a realistic thing. So while I do think that felt something like it was not necessarily like something we needed, I do feel like everything else about the story that centered around that did fit.
Yes, it felt realistic.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Yeah. I will say I was slightly disappointed that there wasn't more magic. I wanted more magic, and it didn't really happen until like 70% of the way through, which was a little bit disappointing. Like, I remember even thinking at the 50% mark, is this a fantasy?
It's a fantasy because it's a make-up world.
Right. Like, and that's what I was thinking. I was like, so is this just an alternate place? Like, that's cool. That's fine. But I was just like, I thought there was going to be some magic.
But that's
and then
also very similar to the Game of Thrones. Because there's not a lot of magic in that either.
Absolutely true. Absolutely valid. So I stuck with it. And then eventually you meet the witch and she comes through the fire and you're like, okay, now there's magic. That's not normal. But I will say too, like, the world building I could have used more of. I didn't really understand how the magic system worked. I didn't understand what the rules were. I didn't understand what the limits were. Like, a lot of it was just talking about the old ways and how, you know, it's dismissed a lot and that kind of thing. I could have used a little bit more discussion about that.
I agree. And I remember, like, in the beginning when she was like, did you pray over the making of the sword? Like, the blacksmith, and then, like, she couldn't cut herself on the sword. And she was like, oh, it's true. You know, a sword to protect the queen can't hurt the queen. And I'm like, okay, well, I would like more lore. Look, I have a horror for lore.
I wanted more lore.
I will take all of the fucking lore that you will throw at me. I am serious.
100%. And I was thinking a lot of there were definitely periods through when I was reading this book where I was like, I need more lore. Like, I need to understand how this world works. I don't really understand the rules.
And I love the politics and everything, and that's great, but I'm also in it for the fantasy aspect.
Exactly. And I felt like that was a little bit more on the back burner than it was, like, setting up the politics and like giving backstory into who was at war with whom, which is fine. Like, that is important information, but I need to know what the rules of the universe are to make sure that everything is following those rules. And I didn't get that, which was why it's not a 5-star read.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so...
What did you think of Hesta?
I loved her. From the beginning, I loved her.
Irreverent, like, could not give a fuck, but will make you a beautiful gown.
100%. I loved her so much. She did not take anyone's shit. She was old and past caring what anyone thought. Her story was so sad.
I know.
So sad.
Yes.
And I was glad that she found happiness in the end. Yeah, I just really loved her for sure. Yeah. Did we suspect that Polia, or whatever her name is, was alive?
I did.
I did as well.
Yes.
Because you never saw a body.
Yes.
Like, there was no talk of, we did a big burial, whatever. Like, it was always like, well, my grandmother died.
Yes.
And that was kind of it.
Yes. I am a firm believer in if you don't see a body in a book, they can come back at any time.
I absolutely subscribe to that as well. So
I've read a lot of books. So if I don't see a body, I just assume that they can come back at any time.
yes, I absolutely agree, and that's how I felt about this. I did think, though, that the way that she was brought back was really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Having Alton kind of be her protector,
Yes.
humanized him,
Yeah,
in a really good way. And I thought that it was really, really lovely.
it did, and it made him it really did kind of make him a person. It finally unified the two of them.
It made him human in her eyes. Like, she had seen him only as a king, and not a very good one up to that point.
Well, because we really was like, what the fuck do I need to go to a war council for? That's what they're for. I don't need to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Also, bringing that up, can we talk about Hestian for a minute?
Ugh.
And how just terrible he was from the very beginning.
Ugh.
Like, she set it up very well in that you knew that Arrigo and Hestian were going to be a problem, right?
Oh, from the
two of them from the beginning. I did not realize that Arrigo was going to be quite so crazy, but I knew he was a bad dude, so
it got real weird toward the end. Like,
it really did. It took a turn, and I was like, damn, okay. Like, they're raping people, and, like, this is not what I thought was gonna happen.
Again, trigger warnings in the front of the book. So
Yes. Yeah.
Make sure you read the trigger warnings.
Yeah.
But no, you're reading towards the end of the book and you're just going, what the fuck is going on?
And there were a couple of times where she was looking at his face and she's like, wow, he's really a lunatic. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, where did this come from? Because that wasn't set up that well in the beginning. Like, you knew he was calculating. You knew he was gunning for the throne. But you didn't quite realize how
because she didn't
crazy.
Either. And I think this goes back to a, non-trustworthy narrator.
Yes. Unreliable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're just seeing it through these other people's eyes, and they're new to the country. They don't know these people.
And even Alton is like, yeah, that guy's annoying. But like, he doesn't think that he's... Right. Yeah. Exactly.
He doesn't know what the fuck's going on, because he's fucking off. So, all of a sudden, this guy's like, I can do whatever the fuck I want, but then all of a sudden he can't.
Yeah.
And that is what flips his trigger.
Yep.
And then you're just like, what?
Happening? Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
And then you're in a whole other book. It really does feel like you're in a whole other book.
I was gonna say that last 30%, you're just like, where am I? This is not what I was reading before. I will say, when she decides to go see her supposedly dying husband, and I'm just like, girl, what are you doing? This is obviously a trap. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You can't leave the castle. And she does it anyway, and of course she's like, oh shit, we've been outmaneuvered, and it's like, you think? Like, I was so frustrated with her.
You're smarter than this, what the fuck are you doing?
Just because someone steps out of a fire, you're gonna just do whatever they say? Come on!
Oh my god, they're magic, I have to listen to them?
Exactly!
I don't know, if someone stepped out of a fire, I'd be like, you need to get the fuck out of my house.
Exactly! That's what I'm saying! That was my first thought.
Where's my smudging stick? I
exactly.
need to be like,
yes.
Hello, goodbye.
100%. I'm not listening to anything you say. La 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 la. And instead, she just goes, oh, I gotta go be with him. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, she got real questionable towards the end.
Yeah.
But love does that to people.
And I was just gonna say, that actually is realistic, because if you thought that your loved one was dying, of course you're gonna go try to be with them at the end. Like, of course. So, fine.
I guess we can go.
Guess.
Be involved.
Be
fine.
A person.
Yeah. Overall, I feel like it felt realistic in a fantasy setting.
I agree. Yeah, I think so too. And she was, like, I do feel like, and there were some conversations with her dad where I felt it was super, super realistic, where she was talking and it's like, he goes, well, I raised you to be a son and now you're talking like king. And she's like, maybe we can get away with gender roles and then we don't have to say what's appropriate and what's not. Like, we don't have to just like say that certain actions are male or female. Like, maybe they're just human. And I was like, thank you. That's the way it should be.
Right?
Like, we're all just people, and some people think differently than others, and that's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean that men are better at math and science than women. Like, women just aren't given the opportunity. So, maybe if you gave women the opportunity to rule, you'd find that they were actually better at it.
Right? God.
So, yeah. And I was like, but I will say, though, that I did feel some empathy for her dad when she full-on slaps him in the face.
Dude, just right across the face.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, but also, like, I kind of understand where he's coming from, too.
Like, right smack across the face. Like, I don't hit.
I know. That's the thing. I am a pacifist. I do not believe in violence. Like, I
mean, I would leave the room if I felt like I was going to hit somebody. I would not.
Exactly.
Hit
like,
somebody.
that is not my path of choice.
She was in mourning.
And I do understand hiding a living relative you thought was dead. That's fair. Like, I would be upset too. Like, yeah. And that's the thing, is like, I am a pacifist, but to a point.
Yes.
I will defend myself if it comes to it. So.
And we have to also, though, be like, okay, so I may be a pacifist, but this character
is not
a pacifist.
For sure.
And
yes.
I feel like if she were trained in sword fighting, she would be stabbing people all the fucking over the place.
But it just made me sad because it was such a abrupt ending to a really loving relationship. Like, you could tell that he really did love her, and he was struggling with his own mental health in a way that, and I'm not saying this was fair to her, because it was not. Like, she became his anchor, which wasn't fair to her. Like, she lost her mom too.
Yeah.
And she should have been able to grieve and be her own person, and that's not necessarily what happened.
But he does send ships. Someone does send ships later
Not
on.
him. He's captured right away.
Oh, yeah.
He's banished, but he gets captured right away and is tortured for a long time without her knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which, actually, this is why I actually thought of the Game of Thrones comparison.
Yeah.
It's because she prays that her husband will be well, and she says to the gods, take whoever you need. And so they take her father.
Yeah.
And she even acknowledges, like, I brought this on myself. Like, I said, take who you need to, and they took him.
No, but after she's married and she needs more help, doesn't her father or her cousin or somebody sends Istok?
I mean, when she comes back to the city that's been taken, her uncle shows up for her.
Okay, guys, maybe it's our uncle.
And her aunt sends ships, but her dad's been captured.
Yeah, her dad's out of the picture.
Yeah. So, I just finished it yesterday, which is why I know.
Thank God. 'Cause I don't know.
Yeah, this is why, like, I try so hard to read them as close to these episodes as possible, because
I did look
it's so
through
hard.
them. I'm very fresh
No.
on some things.
It's just so hard because we read so many books that they all kind of blend together, and you're like, wait, am I thinking of the right one?
So her uncle came. And
Yes, yeah.
I knew someone from Istok sent the ships.
Yes. Yeah. And, like, I do wonder, and this is why I want to read the second one, because they set this up very well, because they light the thing at the top, kind of like the Beacons of Gondor, right? But they light that, whatever it is, to let her aunt know that her dad is dead.
Yeah.
And I want to know how that plays out, because this guy is like a drunkard, and he's like, no, this is the only thing I have to do with my life. I have to get this done. And this, like, tavern owner is like, All right, I guess I'll get you there. I don't know. Fine.
No, I've read the beginning, and it's actually, I will tell you just the beginning.
Yeah.
And Kira gets onto this boat, and the captain is like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Oh no!
And she's like, "The fuck are you?" And they have this whole fight, and then the captain realizes she's the heir to the throne of this
Yeah.
dog.
Perfect. I love it. I love it.
And then
so
he's
much.
like, "Oh shit."
I love it so much because so much of this book is her kind of figuring out that she can stand on her own 2 feet.
Yeah, there's like a whole thing where there's like I think they actually have like a fight.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's practiced and she knows what she's doing now.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, there's a whole thing.
Okay, so when I read it out, that'll be good. That'll be good.
But yeah, like the captain's like, "What the fuck did I just do? That's the heir to the throne of his
Oh man.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I definitely did enjoy this book. It was definitely what I wanted in an epic fantasy. It like obviously the first book in epic fantasy is a lot of setup because you have a lot of world building to do, characters to introduce. Like I remember reading Game of Thrones for the first time and thinking, who are all these fucking people?
It's so funny when I read reviews for Game of Thrones, like the first book, because everyone is always like, "I don't know who anybody is."
I know.
And I'm like,
so
nobody knows
true.
who anybody is in the first book of fucking fantasy. Nobody.
No.
Nobody
No.
knows.
There are too many that's why it's epic fantasy, because it's so spread out. There are so many things to learn. There are so many rules. There are so many people. There are so many houses.
Yep, that is why it's called epic fantasy.
Yes,
because there's so many. The cast of characters is huge.
For sure, and that's exactly what this was, and it was perfect. So, I definitely enjoyed it. I will read the second one for sure. I loved that it was so woman forward.
Yes.
That was so great for me. There were spicy times.
They weren't until later, but again, given the backstory, that made total sense. Also, they didn't know each other, so also made sense.
Yeah. I was a little bit surprised that the spicy times were not as spicy as expected.
They were a little closed door.
Yes, which was surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought for sure, because of the way they were set up, that we were going to see everything, and then no, that's not what happened. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I was surprised.
It's almost like Isabelle Olmo was like respecting their privacy.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like.
It did feel like that. But it's really funny because it did feel like she was like, I can't show this to everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let them do this. Isabelle Olmo did feel like she was just kind of like respecting their privacy.
They were finally overcoming this hurdle, and now they're coming together.
Which I can respect.
Absolutely, 100%. I was just surprised that that's how it went. I'm not saying that it was bad or good. I'm just saying that I was surprised that that's how it went. I think it worked, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. But it also fits, and we're gonna get some controversial topics here. Prepare yourself, because there are two very different camps when it comes to epic fantasy. There are people who think that epic fantasy should not ever have any graphic spice whatsoever. Right. And then there are people who think that it's okay to have spice in epic fantasy. And I will let you guess what the gender is of the first one. And you'll only need one guess.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer. This is the thing, and I actually think it's actually relevant right now, because a lot of Gen Zers are also talking about spice in TV and film and how they don't want it. And I will say this, is that sometimes it is important to the plot and to character growth to have those scenes. And that's why, in this case, what we saw, the spice that we saw, which was spicy, was important, because it was showing intimacy and it was showing their developing relationship and trust, which is very important for both of these characters.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think that that's true of TV and film as well. I don't think that everything needs to be gratuitous sex. I think that Game of Thrones especially is terrible at sexposition, which
Yes.
shouldn't even be a term, which pisses me off, but I digress. But I will say that sometimes it is necessary to show
Why should you
character
digress?
growth.
This is actually a conversation that we should have regarding this, because this is epic fantasy with
Yes,
spice in it.
and this is the thing, is that I think that Game of Thrones, the show, and the books to some extent, use women as a plot device rather than characters.
And in this case, with this epic fantasy, that is the opposite.
I agree, for sure.
And there is spice in it, and it's well done. And in fact, there is actual sexual assault in this book that we do not see and is not used as a plot device, just as a backstory.
Yes.
And it is still relevant to the plot.
Exactly.
We don't have to see it. It is not
No.
gratuitous. And it is still relevant. And it still matters. And it is still impactful.
Exactly. And I would like to see a lot less of people in general using rape as a plot device crutch, which I feel like they use a lot where they don't know what to do with the women characters especially.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, women don't have to be raped in order to have trauma. Like,
Right.
why is that a thing that exists? Like, there are so many other things going on that are so interesting and complex and
I say this knowing that a lot of the writers are not just men.
no, 100%. Absolutely agree.
The
Absolutely
misogyny
agree.
comes from inside the house.
Yeah, exactly. And it's problematic, and it's
I appreciated this,
far-reaching.
and one of the reasons why this was a top read for me a couple years ago was because of the feminism. I appreciated I was sad for him, obviously, and his backstory. And I wish that, and I did feel that it was kind of shoehorned in a little bit. But at the same time, it was not gratuitous. We did not get a detailed example of what happened. We did not get it in detail, like,
Yes, I don't need to read that.
we don't need to know. We just need to know it happened. That's it. And it happened to a male main character.
Yes, it was a different, unique way to bring that into the plot. I'm not saying I liked it better or worse.
It's not
I'm
any
just saying
better.
that it was different.
But
yeah.
it is a way of bringing a kind of a spotlight on the fact that men are
It
also
happens to men as
sexually
well.
assaulted.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that also happens.
Yep, and they're a lot less likely to report it.
Absolutely. So that is also important.
Yeah, I agree, for sure. Yeah, and the way that he deals with it, like, I felt like his character was actually very realistic, and I was getting frustrated with him in the beginning because he seemed so flirty and so annoying, and I was just like, what is wrong with this guy? And then when he opened up, I was like, oh, got it.
That's the thing, is once you hear why, you're like, oh, I forgive you everything.
Yeah. And like, even before I heard the exact reason why he killed his brother, I knew there had to be some kind of extenuating circumstance. There had to be some reason that he would have gone in there and challenged him, right?
Yes.
And I didn't necessarily think this was the reason, but it made sense after it was explained. I still don't really love that sexual assault is used in this way. I think there could have been another explanation that still would have worked just as realistically.
But at the same time, I was still sad for his brother, because that meant that at some point someone did it to him, probably.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's a cycle.
Yes.
So at some point, his brother was exposed to it.
I agree with that. I had that same thought.
So, let's end this, on he broke the cycle.
Yes. Yes.
And Almira was able to help him
heal. Yes. Yes. Absolutely agree. For sure.
Which is awesome.
Oh, yeah. So awesome.
So I think that the budding romance between the two of them was completely realistic, and at the end was amazing.
Absolutely agree.
And the ending was really tense.
It was. It was very tense.
I didn't know who was gonna fucking win. Like, I didn't know if anyone was gonna win. Like, I really didn't know if it was gonna end on a fucking cliffhanger for a bit there.
I actually thought that it might, and that it was gonna pick up in the second book, which would have pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie.
I really would have been mad, and I would have, like, fucking DM'd her in her fucking TikToks and been like, what the actual fuck
Why?
did you do?
Yeah, exactly. But I will say, I'm glad that it ended the way that it ended. I'm glad that the Red Guard got to be kind of the heroes of the day, which was fucking awesome.
I love the fucking Red Guard, man.
Yeah, like, they're down to, I think there are only 3 of them left, but still phenomenal. And yeah, having her family kind of, like, respond to her call and, like, send help, I thought that was amazing as well. I really did enjoy it. I thought the writing was really good. I thought the characters were really complex and interesting. Like, it kept me invested, for sure.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
What is our next read?
We are going back in time a little bit. We're going to read a classic epic fantasy, Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which was, I think, first published in 1995.
Everyone should read this book if you like fantasy. This should be a required read.
I agree. And I can't wait to talk about it because it is such a classic and it gets brought up quite often, and a lot of people don't realize that Robin Hobb is a woman.
A woman.
So, until next time, I am Daniella Drake.
And I'm Evelyn Crow.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Intoxicated Literature. Drink well, friends.